If you're opening Photoshop for the first time and you feel lost, don't worry, this is the right place to start. You and we are going to get through this step by step. And by the end of this lesson, Photoshop will never seem scary to you. You can always use these chapters to skip to any section of the video. And do not forget to download the practice files and the notes using the links in the description. So without any further ado, let's get started. Starting with, what is Photoshop in the first place? Photoshop is simply a program to create and edit photos. That's all there is to it. In other words, it's a program to create and edit any image made up of pixels. Now, what is a pixel? If you continue zooming into a photo, at the end, you'll find one tiny box with just one color. And that, my friend, is a pixel, a tiny box with just one color. Now, when you zoom out, you realize that a lot of these pixels, in other words, lots of these tiny boxes with just one color come together to give you your image. In many cases, millions of these pixels come together to give you an image like this. So when you say you took a photo with your camera that has 24 megapixels, it simply means that your image has 24 million pixels. Mega means million. Here's an example of a photo with 24 megapixels. How do we know it's 24 megapixels? Well, you can just zoom in and start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you'd probably get old doing that. Instead, if you look at the dimension of the photo, it is 6,000 pixels wide and 4,000 pixels in height, which means that if you start counting from here, by the time you reach that point on the right, there would be 6,000 pixels. And if you start counting from the top, by the time you reach the bottom, there would be 4,000 pixels. You multiply those and you have a total of 24 million pixels. In other words, 24 megapixels. We are starting right from scratch. How do you properly install or update to the latest version of Photoshop? If you don't already have Photoshop, you can always start with a free trial. If you're a student or a teacher, Adobe usually gives higher discounts. I've added their links in the description in case you need them. Now, the proper way to install and update your Adobe apps is to make sure you download the Creative Cloud Desktop app. I'm going to leave a link to that as well. But once you do get the free trial or make the purchase, this should be an automatic step. Your Creative Cloud Desktop app is actually an app, and it should look like this. It allows you to install, update your Adobe applications, and sometimes if the updates are not stable, it also allows you to uninstall or move back to the previous version. To install Photoshop or any other Adobe application that you have purchased, simply go to Apps right there and make sure All Apps is selected. And here you will find Photoshop. If Photoshop is already installed, you will see the Open button. If it's not installed, you will see the Install button. Now, if an update is available, you will be notified in the corner. You can click on View Updates or automatically update everything by clicking on Update. You can also go back to All Apps, click on your version of Photoshop that you have installed, and click on the three dots, and then you can go to Other Versions, maybe go to an older version or update. All of those options will show up for you. And now it is time for us to actually enter the magical world of Photoshop. When you first open Photoshop, you see something probably not so romantic. And this, my friend, is called the home screen. Now, the home screen has several tabs: Home, Learn, Your Files, Shared with You, so many things. Let us not confuse ourselves with all of those. Let's stay at Home, because that's what we are going to be using 99% of the time, especially as a beginner. The Home tab shows a list of recent files that you have opened or worked on. Right now for me, it's empty because I've not opened anything. And this is my first time opening Photoshop, so there's nothing. Not actually the first, that was 20 years ago. If you were to open up your Finder or Explorer, and if we drag and drop a photo, it opens in a completely different screen. We're going to get to that later. But if you close it, it continues to show up in the home screen because you recently opened it. Now, in the same home screen, if you scroll up, you'll find suggestions from Adobe. This could be articles about new features or creative demos and a variety of other things. If this is distracting to you, you can click on Hide Suggestions and it goes away. Now, when you open our Creative file, you see a completely different screen. Let's drag and drop this photo from the Finder into the home screen, a completely different screen opens. But usually if you're opening it for the first time, it would look something like this. What seems to feel like 1,000 tools, so many different menus and panels to confuse us. Don't worry, we got this. We'll make it super simple step by step. We're in this together. Now this is a place where you work. This is the place where you will spend most of your time, if not almost all of your time. And that is why, since it's a place where you actually work, this screen is called the Workspace. Now, how do we switch between the home screen and the Workspace? If you were to close this photo by clicking on this cross icon, we have got nothing to work on. So the Workspace goes away and we are left with the home screen. That is one way of going back to the home screen. But what if you're in a situation where you have lots of images or documents open and you don't want to close all of them because you're working on them and you still want to go to the home screen? How do we do that? Let's open all of these 4 photos. I'm just going to select all of them and drag and drop it in Photoshop. It should open. There you go. We have all the 4 tabs open. Now to get to the home screen, either we close all of them one by one, which we may or may not want to do, or there is a better way. Let's open all 4 of them again. And this time, you, my friend, have a very simple button. And that icon just shows where you want to go. It's a home icon. If you click on it, it takes you to the home screen. And at the same position, you have a Photoshop icon. You click on that, and this gets you back to the Workspace. This way, you're not closing anything. So far, what did we learn? When you first open Photoshop, you see what? The home screen. When you open or create any file, what do we see? The Workspace. We spend most of our time in our Workspace because Workspace is a place where we work. What does home screen do? It shows you a list of recent files that you have opened or worked on. A workspace is something very personal to you, and creating your workspace is like organizing your table. And the way you organize your table might be entirely different from the way I do, because what you create and the way you work is unique to you. However, the basic principle in Photoshop is to only keep the things you need. Let's create a simple workspace you can follow along with, and then as you learn Photoshop, you can customize your workspace according to what you need. For that, I'm just going to drag and drop a photo. It's going to make things simple for us. Let's drag and drop right here in the home screen. Now there are several workspaces built into Photoshop, and how do we switch between them? If you go to Window, you will find Workspace. Inside of that, you will find these already built into Photoshop, and they're made for photography. One workspace is made for graphic design. One is made for painting. But then again, these are just presets. I highly recommend customizing your own. But do remember, no matter what workspace you choose, for instance, if I were to choose painting, and if I make any changes to that, for example, you took out the swatches panel and placed it here. Now, if I go to Window and go back to any other workspace, for example, photography, and then go to Window, Workspace, and get back to painting, it remembers the changes you had made, and that is pulling out the swatches panel. So each workspace will remember your last change, but you can always reset it to how it was. Now we do remember the swatches was right there. So I can go to Window, Workspace, Painting is already selected. If I were to click on Reset Painting, it will reset it to how it was, which is swatches there. So in Photoshop, we have several workspaces built in, and any change you make to a workspace, it will remember the last change. Now let's create our own workspace. For that, we are going to go to Window, Workspace, and let's set to default workspace, which is the Essentials. Click on that. And just to make sure you are seeing what I am seeing, let us also reset the Essentials. Go to Window, Workspace, click on Reset Essentials. If you have not made any changes to Photoshop, this is the factory default. Now let's start working through it by keeping only the things we need. I don't need the color panel, so I can just drag it and close it. If you don't need any one of these panels in this area, just drag the entire thing and close it. Properties is good, but I don't need an entire space for it. So let's drag it out. You can also keep it somewhere. You can dock it to a place. So I'm just going to dock it right there. So that way, whenever I need the properties, I can click there and it will open up for me. I don't usually use libraries all that much. When I need it, I can always open that. So let's close it for now. Adjustments, I don't need it. Drag it out and close it. I do use layers, so I'm going to keep it. Channels and paths. Those are the essential ones. Now watch for anything that you do not need. In this case, this is for the history panel, which is very important. It allows you to go back in case you make any mistakes, but at the same time you have comments, and I don't usually need it. So I'm just going to drag it out and close it. So these are the things I need, and this is how I like it. If you need more space for any one of those panels, you can always click and drag and make more space. Now let's have a look at the tools. You can either have all your tools in one line or you can have them in two lines. I like them in two columns, so let's click on this button. Now this is a look that I absolutely love. It's a very simple workspace and it will work for most of your applications. Now how do we save it so we can always get back to it? Let's go to Window, Workspace, and New Workspace with all the changes that you have made. Now with this, you can also save any keyboard shortcut changes you might have made, any changes to the menu. You can save all that. Let's keep it checked just to keep things convenient. Now you can name it whatever you want, your name up to you. I'm going to type in PiXimperfect and click on Save. Now you would notice if we go to Window, Workspace, there is the PiXimperfect workspace. Now whenever you are in any other workspace, for example, graphic and web, and it looks very weird to you, you can always go to Window, Workspace, PiXimperfect. And there we are, back at it. Now what happens if your experimentation goes too far and you close many panels and you move them here and there and things are changed and you want to come back to your workspace? No matter how much you try, by going to Window, Workspace, you would notice PiXimperfect is already selected. You try any other workspace like painting, you go back to PiXimperfect, it's not the way we saved it. Remember what we learned. Your workspace remembers the last change that you made to it. If you want to reset it to exactly how you saved it, simply go to Window, Workspace, make sure you have selected your workspace, and then click on Reset PiXimperfect or your workspace name. And it's back to exactly how we saved it. Another panic that a lot of us had when we are starting out with Photoshop is that, what if there's something I just cannot see? What if I don't see the Layers panel or any of the panels? Let's say we take the Layers panel out and we close it. Let's say we take out the tools and we close it. Now we are lost. Maybe you don't even have panels to create a workspace. What do? All panels in Photoshop, remember this, all panels in Photoshop can be found inside of Window. So say you're not seeing the Layers panel, simply go to Window and Layers. Check it, and the Layers is back again. And you can place it wherever you want. Now say you're not seeing the Tools panel, huge panic. Simply go to Window, scroll down, and then there is Tools. And you have your tools. And of course, you can hold from here and dock it wherever you like. There you have it. So just as a refresher, what did we learn so far? When you open Photoshop, what do you see? The home screen. What is the place where you work? Workspace. How do you switch between the home screen and the workspace? By clicking on the icon in the corner. If you click on the home icon, you're at the home screen. If you click on the Photoshop icon, you're back at the workspace. Now, what do you do when you cannot find the panel? Simply go to Window. All your panels will be inside of that. Also, anytime you're feeling lost or you have messed things up, you can easily reset your workspace by going to Window, Workspace, make sure your workspace is selected, and then reset. And it's back. Have you ever had birthday cake as breakfast the next day? Doesn't that cake taste perfect? Sometimes even better than the birthday itself. That's all you have to remember. If your Photoshop workspace seems very complicated with a bazillion things, remember, it only has three parts, three major parts, and that is cake tastes perfect. In other words, canvas, tools, panels. I'm going to repeat that again for you. Canvas, tools, panels. That's all there is to it. So if the Photoshop workspace is confusing you, just remember the morning birthday cake tastes perfect. In other words, it has only 3 major parts: canvas, tools, and panels. Imagine you're an artist in the real world. You have your canvas, where you create your masterpiece. You have your tools like the brushes, the chisels, which you use to create that masterpiece which is on the canvas. And then you have your palettes, where you mix colors, mix a lot of materials that you use for your painting. Similarly, in Photoshop, you have your canvas where you create your masterpiece. You have your tools like the brush tool for painting, text tool for adding whatever kind of text you want, move tool for moving items, and several other tools. And then you have your panels, and each panel has a specific function. For example, the layers panel maintains the stack of graphics. First, you have this graphic that we created. On top of that, we have the text, which we can turn off and turn on. Another example could be the history panel, which maintains a history of the previous steps you took. For example, I turned it off and on just now. Before that, I moved it. Before that, the text was not there. So it remembers your previous steps to a certain limit, of course. So just as a refresher, what are the 3 parts of a workspace? Cake tastes perfect. Canvas, tools, panels. How do you switch between the home screen and the workspace? Simply clicking on this icon in the corner. Whenever you're learning any software, there are 3 things without which learning that software becomes absolutely pointless. And those 3 things is what I like to call the OCS of that program. In other words, how to open a file, create a file, and save a file. If you don't open or create anything, what are you even doing? And even if you do open or create something and if you don't save it, what is the point of creating in the first place? That is why let's start with how to open a file. The first straightforward way of opening any file is remembering what you're actually doing. You are opening a file. So where do we need to go? File in the menu bar. We are going to get to what is the menu bar, options bar later in the video. But for right now, we need to go to File. Why? Because we are opening a file. Once you go to File, where do we go next? Open, as simple as that. Let's click on Open. Now you can locate whatever you want to open, click on that, and click on Open. And it opens, as simple as that. Now another way is, did you notice when we went to File, Open, before clicking there, notice that there is a shortcut. A lot of the menu options have a shortcut on the right hand side of that. It tells you if we press those keys, it will automatically select that option. So for File Open, it is Command O. On Windows, Control O. The same dialog box shows up. You can pick whatever you want and click on Open, and it should open. I'm gonna hit Cancel for now. Now another way to open a file, if that's a file that you had worked on in the past, you can simply go to Home Screen by clicking on the icon on the top left, and then you can click on whatever file you had opened in the past. In our case, let's say I want to open this file. This file is also open. Also from the home screen, you can open a new file by going back to the home screen, clicking there, and there you have the Open button. It does the exact same thing. You can pick what you want to open, click on Open, and it opens. Now, usually I don't keep in mind all of those things, and you can use those if you're charging by the hour. There's another easy method that I use all the time. If you want to open anything, just open up your Finder or Explorer, locate whatever it is that you want to open, and then just click and drag it into Photoshop. Now, be very careful. If you drop it over the canvas, it will not create a new document. Instead, it will show up as a new layer above that existing open document. If you hit Enter or Return, as you can see, this is just another layer. We don't want to do that. We want to open it as a brand new document. So let's delete this layer. Select the layer. You can easily drag it and drop it to the trash can or press the delete key. Now to drop it properly, there are 2 ways. Let's open our Finder again. Say this is the image that we want to drop into Photoshop. We will just drag it, and instead of dropping it onto the canvas, unless we want it as a layer, we will drop it right here in this particular space that you see at the top. Let's drop it there, and it will open as a brand new document. Alternatively, if there's nothing open and you're in the home screen anyway, let's go to the home screen. You can just directly drag and drop here, like so. So this is the image that is already open. So I'm just going to drop in another image and it opens as a brand new document. And all of those are as tabs. Now, since we learned how to open everything, let's also learn how to close them. You can simply click on the cross button to close each and every one of them. And if you had made changes to something and you had not saved it, it will give you a prompt like this. For me, I don't want to change it, so not save that. Alternatively, if you have multiple stuff open and you want to close all of them at once, you can go to File, Close All. If you want to close everything except the document that you're working on, you can choose Close Others. I'm just going to click on Close All and it closes both of them. Now let's talk about how do we create a file from scratch. Again, you have to remember what you're actually doing. Let's get back to Photoshop. You can also get to the workspace if that's more comfortable. We are creating a new file. So we will go to File. Why? Because we are creating a new file. And we will go to New because it's a new file. There you have it. A lot of presets will show up. You can create an A4 document, a 1000 by 1000 document. Totally up to you. Let's not get into the super details. Let's choose one of these presets. You can either go to Print and then you have lots of different sizes like A4, A6, many. You can go to Art and Illustration. You have simple squares like 1000 pixel grid or 2000 pixel grid. Completely up to you. I'm going to choose one of these. It automatically sets the width and the height in pixels and all of the rest of these settings. And you can also name it already. I highly recommend not leaving it untitled. Let's keep it First Design. Why not? Click on Create. And let's not forget, you can also use shortcut to create a new file. If you go to File, New, there's a shortcut, which is Command N or Control N. If you press that, the same dialog box shows up. But since we have already created a file, I'm just going to click on Close for this one. Now we learn by doing, but we master when we are actually having fun. So let's create a fun project. You don't really have to understand every detail of Photoshop right now. Just follow along and have fun. First of all, let us pick the brush tool and you'll find it inside the toolbar. Let's click on it. You can change the tip shape of the brush by clicking at the top right here. There are many different kinds of brushes, and inside general brushes, you'll find the soft round brush. Keep in mind, whenever you choose a brush, it always paints with the color that is in the foreground. Let's click outside for now. Here you will see two squares. The color in the front, as the name suggests, is called the foreground color, and the color at the back is called the background color. See how easy Photoshop is to understand? Now, if you click once on one of these squares, it allows you to change the color to whatever you wish. I'm just going to pick a bluish color, maybe something like so, and hit OK. And then whatever color is on the foreground color, you paint with that. That color comes out once you paint with a brush. You can make the brush size bigger by using the square bracket keys. Right square bracket key to make it bigger, left square bracket key to make it smaller. Obviously, you can make it big or small from here as well. For now, let's keep everything simple. I'm just going to paint and you can take your time to change colors as well. Click here, maybe take a darker color and maybe paint a little bit there. Maybe make the brush a bit bigger and you do some experimentations like so. So that, my friend, is our base layer. Time to add some treble. Just kidding. Above this layer, let's create a new layer and you can do so by clicking on the plus button. Plus means adding, and that's what we are doing. Now let's take the brush again, and this time with the brush, we will pick a hard round brush. Not soft, but the edges will be hard. Let's minimize that by clicking there again. And this time, let's pick a brighter color. Single click here, and we will pick a brighter color like this. You can also change the hue. Hit OK. Let's make the brush a bit smaller with what? Square bracket keys and just dab once. Now I want to add more of this, but for flexibility, I'm going to create another layer by clicking on the plus again. Let's dab one more time. Now let's add some simple text. Click on T. This activates the text tool. you can simply click, and this allows you to add text. And you can type in whatever you want. I'm just going to type in text, T-E-X-T. Now the color of the text is probably the same as the one we painted the circles with. That is why you're not able to see it. So let's select all the text and then click on this icon at the top to change the color of the text. Let's change it to white and hit OK. Perfect. Now the text is selected. That is why it feels a bit awkward. Click outward and it should be fine. Now you can obviously change the font and everything. We'll get to all of these settings later, but for right now, you can just select the text, and from the top, you can change the font to whatever you wish. I'm just gonna pick Poppins. It's a simple font available everywhere, and here is the font weight. You can go for something like black. Now to move the text or move anything, what do we select in Photoshop? The Move tool. There is actually a tool for that. Let's select the Move tool at the top, and this, my friend, is the Move tool. Select that, move the text here, and you can also make it bigger or smaller by pressing Ctrl or Command T. This shows the transform controls. You can now make it as big as you want. So I'm going to keep it like so. Hit enter or return once you're satisfied. Now here's an interesting thing. Remember this dab that you did, this circle that you created? What if we place this layer above the text? And now it's beginning to get interesting. Again, remember, the Move tool is selected. So we can always press Command T on Mac, Control T on Windows, and the transform shows up. And then you can move it, resize it however you like. So I'm going to possibly keep it this way, hit enter or return. See how fancy you can make it? On top of that as well, you can take the brush again, make it really, really large like so. And just before dabbing, do not forget, let's create a new layer and then do so. And that way you can add a lot more dimension. At this point, you have created something. So we need to learn how to save it. Before we do, if the huge brush is distracting, you can always select the Move tool. That is the default tool that we always get back to whenever we are working with Photoshop or not using any other tools. Keep in mind, if you didn't understand any part of the fun project, that's absolutely fine. Just for now, understand how to open a file, create a file by going to File, New, and right now we'll learn how to save a file. For saving, we will discuss three options, starting with the obvious, which is File, Save. Now this is a new document that you have created. There is no document already existing for what you have created right now with this. And that is why when you go to File, Save, it shows you this dialog box which allows you to create a new document. Since we had already named it First Design, the name already shows up here. You can always change it to whatever you wish. Now there are many formats which we can choose to save it in. But since we have added layers, it will only show formats that support layers. We'll get to formatting later, but for right now, let's choose the Photoshop format with an extension .psd, which simply means Photoshop document. So when you save First Design, it will be saved as firstdesign.psd, simply meaning Photoshop document. Let's click on Save. You can just hit OK, that's fine. Now once the document is already there, we just created it, the Save command updates it. Let me show you. So here in our Finder or Explorer, we have created this file called firstdesign.psd. We just made it. Now do know that Mac OS shows thumbnails for PSD files, whereas Windows might not. There is possibly a software that you can install to see the thumbnail in Windows. I'll leave more details if I find them in the description. But for right now, just know that we have created this PSD file. Now, say I made some changes. I double click on the T and changed the text to something else. Let's click somewhere else to apply that. Now, if we go back to the Finder, you would notice that it is still the same. It is the previous design that we had saved. This design has not changed to this. So if we go to File, Save, it doesn't create a new document. It just updates the existing one. as you can see right there. So once a document is created, the save command just updates it to whatever changes you make. Another interesting thing is, right now you see nothing else, right? Just the name of the document .psd and all of that. That's it. But if you had to make any change, for example, you selected this layer, the move tool is already selected, and I moved this ball a little bit at the top. You would notice that there's an asterisk there. It simply means that there's an unsaved change. It simply means that this design that exists is different from this because we have made some changes here. So as soon as you go to File, Save, you would notice that this design updates, the ball moves up, and also the asterisk goes away. So far we know what save is. If we don't have an existence of the document that we are working on right now, the save command will first create that file. And after that, if you go to File, Save, it will keep on updating it based on whatever changes you make here. Another thing you should know is that the save command is very strict with formats. Let's say we were to open this particular photo by dragging it and dropping it into Photoshop. Now this photo already exists as JPEG, right? If we take the brush, let's say we take black color and we have not created any other layer. We are just painting on the same layer, which you should not do. And I dab a little bit there. And I wouldn't do that, but say I did it. Now, since there are no other layers, it can be saved as a JPEG because JPEG is a format that does not support layers anyway. So let's go to File, Save as Active. If you click on that, it just saves it because that file already exists. And if we see it, you'll see the black blob there. It can be saved as a JPEG because there are no other layers. Similarly, if we were to create a new file by going to File, New, and let's create a 2000 pixel grid, click on Create. Now this has just one layer. If I paint in a blob like so and try to save it by going to File, Save, this file doesn't exist. So this dialog box shows up, but this time there's a difference. You would notice that in the format, you have so many options. And the reason you have that many options is because there is just one layer. You don't have to have a format that supports layers. You see the difference? Let's cancel for now. Let's not overcomplicate things. Let's go back to how it was. I'm going to undo this, and the way to undo in Photoshop is pressing Ctrl or Command Z. We'll cover that later for now. Now notice that this image exists. Once we hit on save, it updated that JPEG because it only had one layer. But if we were to add another layer to it, let's say we drag and drop this mountain image here, hit enter or return. And just for a fun project, let's change the blend mode of this layer from normal to screen. Now blend modes are ways a layer interacts with other layers. We'll cover that in future lessons. For right now, with this new layer selected, change the blend mode from normal to screen. This creates a wonderful double exposure. Now again, you can select the move tool. Remember, Ctrl or Command D for transform, and then you can move this stuff according to how you wish to do. This is a fantastic result. Hit enter or return. And now if you try to save it by going to File, Save, or you can always use the shortcut Ctrl or Command S, you would notice it doesn't automatically update that file. Because now that we have layers and JPEG does not support it, you have to choose another format like Photoshop document and save it as a brand new document. I'm just going to name it double exposure and click on save. You can just hit OK. So that is the save command, and we also did a fun project through it. Just to recap, if you're creating a brand new file and that file doesn't exist yet, the save command creates that file for you. And then as you begin to make changes to that file, as you begin to work in that file, and any change you make after that change, if you use the save command, it will simply update that file. Now let's talk about save as. Let's open up this design that we just made. Let's say you want to create a different version of this. You double click on the T and name it something else, like version 2. And you also decided to select the background layer, just above it, create a new layer, and with the brush, just paint it with some different colors, maybe some dark yellow or bright yellow, totally up to you. You hit OK, and then you just made the brush a bit bigger and added a little more drama. Let's create one at the top. Select the topmost one, click on the plus, and I'm gonna add one more little one right about there. But here's the problem. If you go to File, Save right now, which is Control or Command S, it will update the existing design, which we don't want. We want to create a brand new version. That is when you go to File, Save As instead. And this time, we are just going to name it version 2 and click on Save. Hit OK. Now, if you go back to your Finder or Explorer, you'll notice the new design, which is version 2, while the previous design is intact. Now, after you have chosen File, Save As and saved it as version 2, you continue working in version 2. You're continuing to work in this brand new document. No more working in that previous document. So now if you make any change, for example, you take this layer and with the Move tool, I moved it a little bit up. Now you have unsaved changes. If you go to File, Save, or Control or Command S, it will simply update this new existing document. See, the ball went up. If you change, let's say, the text to something else, and then let's click elsewhere, go to File, Save. It updates this new document. So the Save As command creates a brand new version. Now also keep in mind, this command is also strict with formats. So if you go to File, Save As, you would notice that it only allows these formats because only these formats support layers. If your document did not have layers, you would have more options here. Now let's focus on how do we save it in a way that we can post on social media or website or anywhere else. So remember the double exposure PSD that we had created with blend modes? Let's open that up inside of Photoshop. Now we also know that PSD is not really supported by Instagram, Facebook, your website, plus it's a very big file. We need to export this as a JPEG or PNG, up to you. But if we were to go to File, Save, this is just going to update the existing document with whatever changes we made, and Save As will just create a new one with those restricted formats that support layers. So what do? We simply go to Export, Quick Export as PNG, that's one of the ways, or we go to Export As so that we have more options. And here you have those formats supported by social media. Let's make our image bigger. You can either choose JPEG, PNG, GIF or GIF, however you like to pronounce it. So I'm going to choose JPEG. Since JPEG allows for compression, where you can reduce the quality and hence the size of the image, because sometimes websites have limitations. If you decrease the quality, you'll notice that the image quality decreases with some kind of artifacts there, but the size is also small, 238 KB. On the other hand, if you increase the quality all the way high, it becomes much more cleaner, but the size is also around 5 MB. So up to you how you want to do it. All of these settings, you can keep it as it is. You want to make sure these two are checked and click on Export. I'm going to name it Double Exposure Export.jpg. Click on Export. Now this document stays as it is. You can make whatever changes you want. You can continue to save it by pressing Ctrl or Command S. It has nothing to do with that thing that we just saved. If we go back to our Finder, you would notice Double Exposure Export.jpg. Now you can upload this to social, your website, and that's the whole thing with saving. I know that was a lot to take in, and I would love for you to watch this section a couple times. So just as a random refresher, how do we see the transform controls? You select whatever layer you want to transform, for example, the text, and then press Ctrl or Command D. The transform controls will show up, and then you can resize it according to your choice. Hit enter or return. By the way, you can also click here, show transform controls, and the transform controls will always show up. That's kind of annoying for me. Let's hit enter or return, so I always turn it off. Another question, what is the shortcut to save? Control or Command S. Remember that as muscle memory. As you continue working in Photoshop, this will save your sanity. Now, there are many other options like Save a Copy. A lot of people also like to use Save for Web, but those are for future advanced lessons. This is more than enough. I use this 99.9, if not 100% of the time. Now, there are 3 awesome bars in Photoshop, not the ones that you're thinking of. If you know these 3 bars, the intimidation of Photoshop will wear off in a snap. Now, these 3 awesome bars, spelled that way, are Options Bar, Status Bar, and Menu Bar. Remember again, Options Bar, Status Bar, and Menu Bar. The Options Bar in Photoshop is at the top. And as the name suggests, it shows you options for the tool that is active. I'm going to repeat that again for you. The Options Bar shows you the options for the tool that is active. In other words, let's say you have the brush tool selected. All the options for the brush tool is going to show up right here at the top in the Options Bar. For example, I want to change the shape of the brush tip. I click here, and right now I have a soft brush like so. I want to use a harder brush, so I will click here, increase the hardness from here, or choose a hard round brush. And now if I paint, this is a hard brush. Similarly, if we choose the text tool, the options for the text tool will show up at the top. Whatever tool is active, the options for that tool will show up at the top. Let's remove all these by pressing Ctrl or Command Z, which is the shortcut to undo in Photoshop. We'll discuss that later as well. With the text tool, if I click, I can add whatever text I want. So if we type Photoshop, we cannot see the text. Why? Because the text is white, the background is white. So we select the text, and here we have the option to change the color. Where is that option? In the Options Bar. Let's click there and change it to a shade of blue, green, red, up to you. Photoshop is blue, so I'm going to keep it at that. Hit OK. So now we have this color. If you wanted to change the font, you select that by double-clicking on it or just drag like so. Up to you. And at the top, you can change the fonts from here. So I'm going to change the font to something like this and change the font weight as well from the Options Bar. And you can also make your text dynamic. If I hit enter, type in Photoshop is cool. Now, if I click on this button at the top, choose block in the newer version, see how the text is aligned? If I click here, and is amazing. See how everything is wonderfully aligning? I can make it bigger, smaller. Just wanted to share with you the power of the Options Bar. Again, to apply this, you can click anywhere else or click on the tick also available in the Options Bar. Let me show you another example. If you select the Move tool, the options for the Move tool is going to show up where? At the top. Let's say you want to center it according to the canvas. You click on the 3 dots, choose Align to Canvas, and then you can align it to the center, to the side, top, all of these various different ways. And that's how the Options Bar works, showing you the options for the tool that is active and it's located at the top. Let's get to the Status Bar. The Status Bar gives you the status of the current document. It's all in the name. And right now, for me, it is showing the document dimensions. You can always change it at any time. If you click on the arrow, there's lots of information you can see. If you pick Layer Count, it shows 2. Why? Because we have 2 layers. If you click there again, if you click on Document Profile, it shows you the document profile, color space, which is in sRGB. Let's not get into the advanced stuff for now. If you click on the arrow and you choose Document Dimension, it gives you the dimension, which is very useful. This has 5760 pixels if you start counting from here to here, and the height is 3840 pixels. You also have lots of other quirky options. I don't see the point of that, but it's there. If you click there, you have Current Tool. Right now the Move tool is selected. That is why it tells you that. If I select the Brush tool, it will tell you right now the Brush tool is selected. You also have that as well. Lots of different ways to see what is going on in Photoshop, especially with your current document. And finally, we have the menu bar. So what do we do when we go to a restaurant? We ask for the menu. And what happens with the menu? You make orders. Let's say you want noodles. You give the waiter or the waitress the order and they bring it to you. Similarly, in Photoshop, you have the menu bar where you order things. You order a command, you order creating a new file. It's all about ordering what you want from Photoshop. For example, you want to create a new file, you will go to File because you want to create a new file and New. You want to open a file, you'll go to File and Open. You want to apply an effect, maybe blur one of these circles. Let's select the layer that we want to target and then go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And you can blur it like so for some additional effect. Hit OK. What are the most important parts of Photoshop? We wish we could do that in real life, but it is what it is. And that is how to undo and redo. If you carry out an action in Photoshop like so, and you want to go back, you press Ctrl or Command Z. Do that again, you go back further. Do that again, you go back further. Do that again, you go back further. And if you want to redo, if you want to go forward in time, you can press Command Shift Z. Control Shift Z. One time, 2, 3. There you go. That's how to do it. So undo, Control or Command Z. Redo, Control or Command Shift Z. By now you have a general map of Photoshop. You just need a way to move around it, especially move around the image. And you need a vehicle. I'm going to give you 2, maybe 3. Toyota, Rolls-Royce, and a little bit of walking. First of all, here's how to walk. In this image, say you want to remove the blemishes. For that, you would need to zoom in, right? And to walk, you press Ctrl or Command plus to zoom in, Ctrl or Command minus to zoom out. And that is a very slow but very reliable way of doing it. Once you have zoomed in, you can move around by using these sliders, scroll here and there and move around. Not so efficient. Now let me give you a Toyota, which is reliable and gets the job done. To make sure you get the Toyota, first of all, let's go to the zoom tool, and you have to do this just once and for all. Set this setting. You want to make sure scrubby zoom is checked in the options bar. And again, options bar is what? It shows you the options for the tool that is selected, and it is at the top. So just make sure scrubby zoom is checked, and then you can get back to whatever tool you want, brush tool, move tool, up to you. And here's how this works. You press and hold the space bar, the cursor momentarily changes to a hand, and you can use this to move around the image. Now if you wish to zoom in and zoom out, along with the space bar, hold the command on Mac or Control on Windows. And then if you drag right, it zooms in, drag left, it zooms out. As simple as that. So drag right to zoom in by holding the Control or Command and space bar, drag left to zoom out, and then you can let go of the command on Mac or let go of the Control on Windows, keep holding the space bar, and then with the hand, just move around. Very simple. And that's the Toyota. It gets the job done, it's very efficient, and that's what you would use most of the time. Before I show you the Rolls-Royce, let's start removing some of these blemishes. You can create a new layer by clicking on this button so that everything stays non-destructive, or a way of editing where you can always turn it off or go back or make adjustments. Now select the Remove tool. If you're not able to see this, click and hold in this group and just pick the Remove tool. Now where do we find the settings for the Remove tool? We just learned about it. Whatever tool is selected, the options for that tool is going to show up where? In the options bar. For this one, I'm just going to turn off generative AI, and you can copy all of these settings exactly the way it is. Just simply loop around the thing you want to remove. I guess that's a pimple patch, and it goes away. Just like that. So darn simple. Now here's the Rolls-Royce of it. Say right now you're working on the forehead, but you want to jump to the chin. You would have to either zoom out, then find the chin, zoom in, or you would have to move slowly and gradually. That's a pain in the neck. Instead, use the Rolls-Royce to move around, and that Rolls-Royce shortcut is H. If you hold the H key and you click and hold, you will see a bird's eye view. Let's say we move to the chin and we let go. It zooms into the chin. Let go of the H key and you're back to the remove tool or whatever tool you were working with. And we continue to work through these one by one. Now say I want to move towards the ear. I hold the H key again. The cursor changes to a hand. I click and hold. I move right there. Let go of the H key. And now I'm zoomed in to that particular area. Now the final shortcut you should know, which you will be using again and again, is say you're zoomed in, but now you want to fit the canvas to the screen. How do you do that? Press Ctrl or Command 0. Done. Even if you're zoomed out too much like this, press Ctrl or Command 0. Just fits it. You're zoomed in too much, press Ctrl or Command 0. Doesn't matter whether you're zoomed in or zoomed out, or even if it's just at the side, Ctrl or Command 0. Fits it right in, keeps it in the center. There is one very important setting in Photoshop that I highly recommend turning off, and that is my personal recommendation. If you love it, go for it, but this can drive a lot of people crazy, including me. Let's say you're zoomed in and you want to move around. What do? You hold the spacebar, the hand shows up, and you move around. But here's the issue. Notice that it continues to go even after you let go. So if I hold the spacebar, I move around, I let go, it continues to move. That is very distracting. You let go, it continues to move, like you do in a smartphone. You don't want that when you're retouching or working with your photos. You want the movement to stop when you stop. This is called flick panning in Photoshop. And if you're like me, you would want to turn that off. Just simply go to Photoshop Settings, and that's on a Mac. On Windows, it would be under Edit, Preferences. So on a Mac, go to Photoshop, Settings, and Tools. Inside of that, just uncheck Enable Flick Panning and hit OK. For some systems, you may need to restart Photoshop, but it's fine here. Now when you hold the spacebar and you move and stop, it stops where you stop. Even when you move in and let go fast, it stops where you stop. So very, very convenient. It just moves exactly how much you want it to move. Let us do a quick refresher. What is the shortcut to fit the canvas to the screen? Ctrl or Command 0. What happens when you hold the space and drag? You just move around. If you hold the space, along with that you hold the Command on Mac or Control on Windows, what happens? You drag to the right to zoom in, drag to the left to zoom out. Now in the later versions of Photoshop, you'll see a new bar, which is very helpful, especially for beginners. And that's called the Contextual Task Bar. Now what is it? Let's say I serve you a bowl of soup, tasty soup, your favorite one. But I give you a fork to drink it. What would you do? You would throw it back at me. So what do I need to give you? A spoon. Similarly, let's say I served you noodles. Spoon will be very hard to eat noodles from. You would need chopsticks or fork if you're a beginner like me who doesn't know how to use chopsticks. What's important is in both the scenarios, I looked at the context of what you were eating and gave you the tools based on that context. Similarly, in the later versions of Photoshop, you now have this floating bar called the Contextual Task Bar, which changes its buttons and features and settings based on what you are doing in Photoshop by looking at the context, based on what it thinks you might need. So let's start from scratch and do a fun project with it. I'm going to close this image. Let's open this image from the very beginning. Here we are in the home screen. Let's drag and drop this image. And again, it's available as a part of your practice projects. At this point, if you're not able to see the contextual taskbar, even mine was off before this, let's click on the three dots and click on hide. That's how you hide it. But how do we see it again? Remember what I told you in the beginning of this video? All of the panels in Photoshop, if you don't see them, can be accessed through Window in the menu bar. If you click on Window, and if you're not seeing layers, you would click on layers. If you're not seeing any other panel, you'll click there. If you scroll down, you'll also find the contextual taskbar. Click on that, and that bar will show up. If that bar shows up somewhere in the corner, just click and drag from here and place it wherever it's comfortable to you. Another way to see the contextual taskbar is just right-click outside the canvas and click on Show Contextual Task Bar. That does the trick as well. Now just watch this. Don't worry too much about the details as we will cover them in future lessons. First of all, let's select this tool. This tool is called the lasso tool. It's used for making a selection. Let's pick that tool. If you're not able to see that tool, just click and hold in that group and pick the lasso tool. Now with the lasso tool, say I wanted to remove all of these 3 benches. I'm going to make a selection around it, like so. Let it go. You will see the marching ants, which means that that selection is active. Now with that selection active, you would also have noticed that the options in the contextual taskbar changes. Just as I should give you spoon when I serve you soup and should give you a fork or chopsticks when I serve you noodles. So according to this bar, it thinks maybe I want to generate something else here, or maybe I just want to remove that area. So remove button shows up. You can simply click on that and it should take a little bit of time. Now the remove function in the contextual taskbar does use generative AI, but it does not use credits, at least at this moment. And gone. Brilliant. Now say you select the text tool. Click on that and I'm going to click and type in run with us. Let's select the text. Now the contextual taskbar gives you options for the text tool. So based on what you're doing, it is already giving you options which you might want to change. In this case, say I want to change the font to something else. I like this particular font. You can install fonts as well, up to you. If this font is not installed for you, you can install that or you can try some other font. Totally, entirely up to you. Let's select this font. Now you can also, of course, change the size from here or with the move tool, that's up to you. And maybe I'll change the color. Let's click here and change the color to white and hit OK. Very convenient at one place. Now let's select the move tool. With the move tool selected, remember how we made things bigger and smaller? Control or Command T. Let's make it bigger and place it right in the center. Hit enter or return. Now at this point, what I really want to do is put the text behind the subject. Another way to look at it is that we want the subject on top of the text. How do we do that? Simply select the layer where we have the subject. Make a copy of that. How do we make a copy? Remember, everything can be ordered from where? The menu bar. You can go to Layer, New. We want to create a new layer and this new layer needs to be a copy. So Layer, New, Layer via Copy. Click on that. And now we have a duplicate. You can obviously use that menu bar thing if you're getting paid by the hour. Alternatively, let's delete this layer. Another way of doing this is by just using a shortcut. And that is selecting this layer and pressing Ctrl or Command J. Now you have a copy. Now in this layer, we want to keep the subject and remove the background. Contextual taskbar already gives you that setting right there. It already anticipates what you might want. Click on that. It takes a little bit of time. And now the background is removed from this particular layer with a mask. We'll get to mask in later lessons. But if you were to turn off everything else, you'll notice that this layer only has the subject. Let's turn everything back on. There's also a shortcut for that, but I don't want to confuse you. Let's bring it at the very top, like so. And that's how you have the subject above the text, or the text behind the subject. The point of this example was to share with you that the contextual taskbar will change its options, buttons, features based on what you're doing inside of Photoshop by looking at the context. That's why it's called the contextual taskbar. And at the end, if you feel like you're a master of Photoshop and this is distracting you too much, you can just click on the 3 dots, hide bar. That's it. I'm so proud of you and I congratulate you for taking the first steps. I know now that you can walk the land of Photoshop knowing where you're going. To master Photoshop, really, you just need 2 ingredients, clarity and curiosity. Clarity of concepts and curiosity to learn the things that interest you. That's all it takes. Just as a reminder, Check the links in description to download the practice files and the notes. And one last favor, if this video helped you in any way, I hope you take in the learnings and help someone else too. You can share this video or share your learnings or teach them. The world needs more beautiful people like you, and you have my faith. Thank you so much for watching this one, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to give us a like, and also don't forget to subscribe, and not just subscribe. Ring the bell so that you don't miss any other future tips, tricks or tutorials. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.